if the percentage is disproportionately that black music and black artists are the ones who generated the majority of the money over time for these labels, and I would guess that that's true. Whether it's rock, whether it's hip hop, whether it's R&B, whether it's soul, whether it's funk, whether it's disco, whether it's house, whether it's dancehall, reggaeton, whatever it is, we know that the streaming retrofitting was unfair. So now, if the majority of the income generators are people of color, and the majority of them are getting taken advantage of by these contracts, then what conclusion do we have to draw? Yeah, it doesn't say we're live. Oh, now we're live. Okay, cool. This always trips me up. What's going down? It's DJ Payne. This is the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. I can't believe it. We reached a milestone. Today is our 50th episode. I know I said I was going to wear googly eyes and Dame was going to paint his face for St. Patrick's Day for some reason. I don't know why. You got to ask him. But it's kind of not the tone right now. So what we do want to do is thank all of you for sticking with us for 50 episodes, and some of you continue to watch and listen. I don't know what void you have in your lives where you fill it with me and Dame talking our shit, but we appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, 50. I mean, I definitely wanted to be more celebratory in 50 because we didn't miss a week, man. We didn't miss a week, and I think it speaks to what we preach to producers and artists just in terms of consistency. How many out there are putting together a plan that has weekly commitments and you've stuck to it for 50 weeks. And we only plan to get better at what we're doing. We have some changes coming to the MEC that we'll be able to announce in the coming weeks. So it's exciting, although we're not living through the most exciting time. I definitely wouldn't call it. That's probably not the right word to use. So it's hard to celebrate these things during this time that we're living through. A lot of negative things happening, although a lot of things that are hopeful as well. A lot of positive things that are coming out of the protests and the demonstrations globally. So I think we have to address it. We have to address it from Payne, I don't know if you just have your own thoughts about it, but we'll definitely address it from a music standpoint or music industry standpoint. That's kind of what we wanted to do today. Obviously, everybody's been speaking on the protests or the uprisings or the riots, however you want to phrase it. It's definitely impacting the music community. I think the blackout actually the idea of the blackout on Tuesday originated from some executives within the music industry and spilled over into, other industry and just folks outside of the music industry. So let's just talk, because I know there's criticism to everything, right? Like anytime you try to do something positive, there's going to be somebody coming out the woodwork saying, why did you do this? Or why didn't you do it that way? Or how come you didn't donate more money? I think that's unfortunate. And I think that that's like people's egos, like, because if they're not going to get enough likes and comments by falling in line, or they feel like they can get more likes and comments by, opposing something. And I think that's unfortunate. I mean, I guess if you have a real gripe about something positive, then whatever. But I think people are being very opportunistic at this point,
Well, I think people do have legitimate gripes about, practice. And I'm seeing that a lot, especially in my city, where a lot of people in the activist community are disagreeing. The part that I don't like is how public it is with social media, but that's another story. To celebrate some good news, I would say it's good news that they dropped the charges against Kenneth Walker, whose girlfriend is Breonna Taylor, who the police killed in an illegal no-knock raid. So the fact that he's free and he was just defending himself and his girlfriend, who they shot dead, it's the minimal amount of good that can come out of that situation, I would say, but at least that happened. So I'm happy to learn of that news. As far as the music industry blackout, I can certainly see the support. I can certainly see the criticism. I rescheduled my B Club session to Wednesday so that we didn't hold it on Tuesday. For me, it was just a matter of solidarity. You know, I don't think that the people who were participating in the Tuesday blackout had negative or malicious intent. Of course, the vast majority of them didn't. And shout out to the K-pop fans who effectively destroyed and made a mockery of Whiteout Wednesday. That was hilarious. And I never thought we would see a time when the K-pop internet community became an effective force in civil rights, but here we are.
Why don't you kind of, because I don't even know really. I mean, I saw that the trending, but I didn't know what was.
Yeah. Well, have you ever? I work with a couple Korean artists, specifically Ted Park. You know, he's a Korean American artist. He's not a K-pop artist, but they do categorize him as K-rap, and you know he works with a lot of big K-rap stars who either crossed over into K-pop or collaborate with a K-pop artist. So I always defer to him when I don't know what the hell's going on. And I would check Twitter trends sometimes, and there would just be a flood of, I couldn't access the actual content related to the trend because there were just a bunch of pictures of like Blackpink or like, I can't name too many K-pop artists, but just a whole bunch of jiffies of, Korean dudes with earrings dancing and singing. And like, I don't know. I don't understand what's going on. I felt very lost. And all of a sudden there were all these anti-BLM trends going on, like Whiteout Wednesday or Blue Lives Matter, whatever. And the K-pop fans, and a lot of K-pop fans are people of color. So it wasn't really out of nowhere. But they start fan camming these trends, and next thing you know, nobody's getting their point across about Whiteout Wednesday. All they see are a bunch of K-pop images. So they effectively destroyed that channel of communication for the people who were trying to hijack this moment of mourning and activism for those killed by police terrorism.
Got it. So it was essentially the same thing that they were worried about, the Black Lives Matter hashtag with Blackout Tuesday, because if you put Black Lives Matter in a post that was just a black picture and you use that hashtag, then you would just see a bunch of black pictures as opposed to, the messages that we're trying to get out through the Black Lives Matter movement. So dope. I didn't even know that was happening. I saw the trend, but I didn't dive deep enough to know what was going on. What are your thoughts on Blackout Tuesday? How did you feel about it? And what are some criticisms that you had about it?
I mean, that was one criticism, I think it was a misstep with regard to how social media works. It should have been more clear what kinds of optimization I hate to use all these like social media marketing terms for this show of solidarity, but being conscious of how these hashtags work and how they work against maybe the spirit of the action is necessary. So right, hashtagging Black Lives Matter on a bunch of blank images did dilute the communication of certain organizations that was not intended by the people posting that hashtag. So I did see a lot of people letting people know to remove that hashtag and the reason why. I mean, for me, like I said, it's a show of solidarity. Acts of solidarity are meaningful. I can see how people would look at it and say, okay, well, now is not the time to be silent. I would also agree with that. I mean, I think it depends on, there's always going to be disagreement in how to communicate a message.
So I don't think and I think so here's part of the misunderstanding. And I think when you play a game of telephone on social media, people don't understand. Like it wasn't a message to stay silent, right? Like if you have a message that's about what's going on, you have information that you need to share. It wasn't about staying silent. It was about taking a break from your job to recognize what's going on. And if you're not a part of the Black community, to hopefully amplify voices that need to be heard on your own platforms. So, yeah, I mean, we didn't post anything else we only typically make one post a day. So I just felt like, okay, that's our post for the day. So it wasn't a message to be silent. I think the criticism that I heard, because it originated from the music industry, is, how can the music industry be leading this? And they're one of the main, vehicles to propagate negative messages amongst our community. And some people think the music industry is evil because they are investing in artists that are destructive or, have messages that are destructive to the Black community. That's why I'm not participating in it. What do you say to that criticism?
I mean, I can't really name an industry in America that's not destructive to the Black community. I don't know. It's hard for me to just stay in the realm of music with this kind of conversation, because now we're getting into ownership, right? Who owns the companies? Who legislates the policies that govern how companies are run? And it's not people of color. So without ownership, what are these companies going to do? So is a record label going to go out of its way to swim against the current of what fans are demanding, and say, you know what, this is all these we're going to encourage our artists to write about this kind of topic. We're going to do more to educate our artists of color so that they have more ownership of their intellectual property. They're not going to do that. There might be
you believe it's more of a fan demand as opposed to, like, they have J. Cole, that market's filled. There's more demand for more negative messages, and that's and companies see more dollar signs in that. So let's keep filling that. Because some people would argue, like, okay, there are more positive artists out there. The labels just aren't investing in them. Like,
well, the labels go with what makes money. That's their business. Their business is to make money.
But so you don't think that there are other J. Cole or Kendrick like artists that can make them just as much money as the lean Percocet crowd?
I just don't look at labels or any large business as a force on which we should put the onus of or the expectation of activism. I don't see a multi-billion-dollar record label being the key to fighting or halting or stopping racism.
I don't necessarily think that that's what because I definitely think that the labels can invest more in a more diverse group of artists. I think it's lazy to double down on what they think is going to work, as opposed to maybe taking I don't even think it's really taking a risk, but I definitely think that they can invest in more messaging. And I don't even think that's taking a huge stand. I don't even think that's like being an activist or depending on them to combat, police brutality or injustice or whatever. I just think it's lazy A&R, to be honest. And I think it's not being willing to take risks. And yeah, I don't even really think it's that much of a risk. I think there's dope artists out there that have different messaging that can sell just as much if you put just as much support and money and marketing behind them. You know, I definitely don't think J. Cole and Kendrick have cornered the market on, you know, socially conscious, because they make stuff that's, you know, just more trendy and dope to listen to, and they have some messaging in their music too. So
yeah, and I don't even put them in the category of socially conscious rapper necessarily. They're just rappers who say what they feel, and sometimes it has a social consciousness to it. They're not. You're not. It's not. It's not like a BDP album. You know what I mean? It's not edutainment. It's not Fear of a Black Planet. Those were very intentionally created records. And so, no, there's no one like that now. Art in terms of famous mainstream rappers like there were in the 90s. And you know, Public Enemy was selling records like crazy. Brand Nubian was selling records like crazy. And their messaging was very clear, and they didn't really stray from that. So, is there something similar to that today? I would say no. So yes, it's wide open. And just to be clear, I'm not blaming rappers. I'm not looking at the landscape of rap and saying, okay, this rapper raps about doing Xanax. It's their fault that there's injustice in the world. No, I'm just saying every system is connected. They're all interconnected with one another. And so do we rely on the labels, or even spend energy thinking that the labels are going to somehow combat these systems? I don't personally think so. But to speak to the question that you asked me about fans, is it a fan demand to see music that you could consider negative or destructive? And I would say, yeah, I definitely would say, yeah. Certainly. Yeah. I mean, I go on YouTube and the recommended videos are these channels that focus on the criminality of rappers. And that stuff is popular as hell. And I know at one point I wanted to talk, and I just kind of threw my hands in there because I'm like, I don't know how to even delve into this topic. But just the term, the culture nowadays, you know, there are all these commentators who speak on the culture. What does that even mean nowadays? For the most part, it's stuff like fashion and who has a criminal record and which rapper is beefing with which other rapper. So yeah, is that destructive? Is that something that reinforces negativity? Yeah, of course it is. And is it popular as hell? Yeah, it's popular as hell. So how do you combat that? I mean, it's a big conversation.
I mean, I don't expect labels to, again, because they're trying. They think they're maximizing profit doing what they're doing. But I think, you know, I think that music has a very real effect on people, and I would hope and wish that they would be more conscious about, you know, the money that they're putting behind certain artists, or at least balance it out, right? Like I would like to see, like, what if labels think it's a failed mission to support artists that are a little bit more diverse or have a little bit more a little bit more intelligence in their thought, in their music, you know, show me the case study where you put just as much money behind Lil Pump and that you did about somebody that's a little bit more, and I'm not talking about, you know, a super conscious rapper. I'm talking about rappers like Chance, J. Cole, Kendrick. You know, it doesn't even have to be somebody that's on it, you know, 24/7. But show me that case study where you put just as much money behind Lil Pump and then this other artist that was really dope, and you lost money. Like I just don't think it's happening. I just don't think the dollars are being put behind artists that have a little bit more substance to their music. And I would like to see it. Am I waiting am I waiting on my hands and knees for it? Like, no, I don't, because I don't expect them to. But given the fact that they make so much money from Black music, you know, I would hope this part of the solution is, you know, well, what is, I don't even know. I mean, hope they didn't just black out Tuesday and didn't have any, you know, financial commitment. I know that the company that I work with, Foundation Music, they put out a dope statement, and they committed dollars, both, you know, short term and long term, committing ongoing support to various organizations. And it would be dope to see at least that from, you know, the major labels and Spotify and Apple.
Yep. Yeah, because we saw it from BeatStars too. BeatStars did not mince words, and I noticed you're wearing the BeatStars shirt, so that was something that made me proud, because that's a platform that I've obviously invested a lot of time and energy into. So to see them as a company make that statement, and as a company, these are really accessible people. So I know them, a lot of them personally, or I've had conversations with them over the phone at very least. To see them just make a statement that was strong and clear, that I think that meant a lot. And honestly, I would personally like to see celebrities do that, like with what Seth Rogen did. He made a very clear statement. There was no mincing of words. There was no mitigating. There was no backpedaling, nothing. He came right out and said what he said. And people were mad about it, but he drew a line. And I would like personally to see more people do that, especially as yesterday I just discovered that there's a sort of famous rapper out there who's a white rapper who uses the N-word, and not in a stereotypical, I'm a white rapper, let me just try to use the N-word to be down sort of way. So
who's that?
I'm not saying his name, and I'm not saying the names of the people associated with him, but let's just say there was a pretty well publicized beef between his label mate and another rapper, a rapper I've worked with extensively, one of the best rappers, in fact. And now it makes total sense to me why there was that accusation of racism being thrown around. So I don't know. Things are crazy right now, and I would like there to be stronger statements, but that's really on the individual. That's you know, because rappers have influence, and unfortunately, you know, when you were seeing all the crazy racist stuff on social media, like the George Floyd challenge, where you know, white kids are posing with knees on necks and stuff and laughing about it. If you go to their profiles, a lot of them listen to rap. A lot of these guys love Black cultural art, but then they do stuff like that. So,
well, that's disgusting, and I'm sure that that is hopefully is that challenge didn't spread far and wide. I mean, there probably was a small pocket of people doing it. I think at this point, you know, it's less risky to come out and be more bold in a statement, because I think people are getting educated to what is happening, and it's less of a. I thought it was dope that Nike supported Colin Kaepernick, but I knew even from a business perspective that was a smart move, and sure enough, as soon as they dropped his shoes, they sold out in a second. Like, I think people are starting to just get a little bit more educated on what's going on. And I think if you do make a statement, it's going to be a net positive. Hopefully, just as a person, you feel better. But I think in terms of like your net gain or loss with fans, like with Taylor Swift, for example, you know, she came out and made a pretty strong statement. And I think the tweet was liked like maybe over 1 million times or something like that. And I know she has a fan base that probably isn't very well educated on some you know, police brutality, and they may feel differently about it, you know. But I think Taylor Swift is big enough, and she probably has a more diverse audience than me from the outside looking in, because I don't listen to her music. I've never been to her concert, but I know a lot lot of kids listen to her music. So I think it's a strong statement. And I think it's even smart from a business perspective, because I think the net gain is going to be positive. You might lose some fans, but I think you gain much more fans and much more respect, and maybe a tighter bond with your fans.
So do you want to talk about these statements made by certain artists? Because I have one from Khalees that I read, and then it sounds like The Weeknd posted something pretty similar.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead. You gonna read it?
Yeah. Well, sure. This is an article, and damn it, I forgot the source. So I apologize, but I think it was OK Player. I think. And it reads, Grammy-nominated artist Khalees spoke up about how the industry should serve Black professionals. Quote, if the music industry wants to support Black life, she wrote, labels and platforms can start with amending contracts, distributing royalties, diversifying boardrooms, and retroactively paying back all the Black artists and their families they built their empires on, unquote. They continued days before Raphael Sadiq joined the conversation as well, posting a scathing critique of the industry to Instagram. And this had to do with streaming. And it's not like this anti-streaming rant about, from the perspective of someone who doesn't understand streaming. He said, if the deals weren't made directly with artists, it's looting. Facts. Don't take my words and turn them around. Go study for yourself. One morning we woke up and music was basically free. And we had talks like that before. We had a conversation with someone who worked for PRS who said the same thing. So this isn't just some kind of, artist take. This is a very real critique of streaming. How, yes, streaming was not in the contracts that musicians signed working with labels 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, but all that music is being streamed suddenly, and the labels are taking the majority share of the revenue generated by it. So I just want to clarify my stance on the statement. It's not just this abstract, streaming doesn't pay because the rates are low. That's not even really the issue, I don't think.
I mean, that's one of, that's one of the issues, but yeah, you're right. Like, so if contracts don't address streaming, because I think most people think like, okay, if you made, let's just say 10%, like say your share or your points on your albums back in the day was, you got 10 points or 10% of the revenue. Most people would think, oh, okay, so when it starts streaming, you get 10% of that. But I don't think that's what's happening, because it wasn't, because streaming wasn't even a thought. It wasn't in the contract. So I think all this money is flowing through to labels, or if it is getting distributed, they're still taking like expenses that don't really exist, like packaging and stuff, all this other stuff that these expenses that corresponded with physical distribution. I bet you they're still taking those expenses on streaming, just like they did, with downloads. So yeah, I mean, that's I mean, we can have a whole discussion on looting and the difference between actually running into a store or this type of looting, that's not out in the open and doesn't require a window to be bashed out. So it doesn't look as bad. But yeah, I think that's a fair criticism for sure. What Khalees said in terms of like, I don't know what she's talking about in terms of paying people back. If you signed a bad deal and people paid out according to the deal, then that's just kind of on you, in my opinion. But it sounds like she's talking about getting some type of pay outside of maybe just because she signed a certain contract, make it right, make it a better contract retroactively and pay me. I don't know I didn't see that post. So I don't know what she's talking about. But I think Raphael Sadiq has a legitimate gripe. I'd be hella mad because you see when you go on some of these some profiles. I was just on Brandy's profile. I mean, I'm not really a Brandy fan, but I had to do some research, and I was on her page, and I seen that.
You're not a Brandy fan? I thought you loved 90s R&B.
Yeah, not really. I didn't really listen to Brandy though. I mean, she got some cool songs, but but
Who
anyway,
did you listen to? I know Boys to Men, but like you didn't,
yeah, I'm like Joe, Jaheim, like Jennings,
but not Brownstone or anything like that.
not so much. Um, Donnell Jones, people like that. But
Oh, so
anyway,
you didn't like female R&B? Okay, we can move on.
well, that's only because, and it has, I've been accused of being sexist because of this. But I tell people, it's like I listen to R&B that I relate to, and I sing along to, right? Like I have a male perspective on things, so I listen to music that has a male for the most part. I mean, there are a few songs here and there that I appreciate, and they're talented. It's just not what I prefer to sing along to. Anyway,
You don't like Just Kicking It?
it's cool song. I mean, there's cool songs.
Oh, damn. All right.
They're cool. But anyway, I was on Brandy's page and I seen, like The Boy Is Mine, like her big hits have been also streamed hella times. So if a song has 60 million streams that came out in, 20 years ago, where is that money? If it's 60 million, it's probably 60 million times $3,000 to be conservative. Like where is that money? So yeah. Anyways, I think the labels should take, just to kind of to wrap this up, because I know we're probably coming to an end pretty soon, but like I feel like the labels need to take more accountability. They owe it to the artists, they owe it to the communities, that they extract their talent from, and in my opinion, take advantage of. Um, do I expect them to? No. Am I waiting for them to? No. But I think at this point, it would even be a good business move to step in front of this and take a more aggressive stance.
Yeah, because essentially what we're talking about here are reparations specifically for the music business. It seems like that's what I would characterize it as. We know America's not paying reparations, period, for the country being built. But I would be curious to know what percentage of the billions and hundreds of billions of dollars generated within the music business over time, within the music industry, just the majors, what percentage of that money was generated by black music?
But I wouldn't.
Blues, jazz, rock.
But I'd be
Right.
careful. I wouldn't even use that word because I don't even look at it like reparations, right? Like to me, if I'm running a label, this is an investment. Like this is gonna build goodwill, and this is gonna build stronger ties and a stronger bond with my artists, hopefully with my staff, with the community. I think it's more of an event. I mean, because so many people get turned off by the word reparations, even though we need to have that conversation.
Yep.
Uh, but I think that bringing that and some of the negative connotations that come with that and calling it reparations would immediately turn people off. I think it's an investment, all the way around.
Well, here's the point I'm trying to make. If the percentage is disproportionately that black music and black artists are the ones who generated the majority of the money over time for these labels, and I would guess that that's true. Whether it's rock, whether it's hip hop, whether it's R&B, whether it's soul, whether it's funk, whether it's disco, whether it's house, whether it's dancehall, reggaeton, whatever it is, I'm guessing that that's what generated the vast majority of profits for the industry, right? So if that's the case, and then we also accept the premise that a lot of these artists, it was streaming. Okay, granted, we know that the streaming retrofitting was unfair. So now, if the majority of the income generators are people of color, and the majority of them are getting taken advantage of by these contracts, then what conclusion do we have to draw? That it is kind of a reparation situation because there is some kind of bias here, whether intentional or not. This is America. Let's be honest. and where do we go from there? So I'm sure somebody's done this. There's no way nobody's considered this question before and hasn't at least tried to figure out an estimate of these numbers, or at least the percentages, because it's impossible to talk about the music industry without talking about Black music and culture. So here we are in 2020.
Somebody probably did the same calculation. Like if you did the calculation of what like Black people should be owed right now, the number is astronomical, and I think that's it's a hard reality to confront, right? And so maybe somebody did do some type of calculation at the labels and like, damn, that's a big ass number. I don't know, if we can put this number out there. We're definitely not paying the shit, like, yeah.
Well, but that's where I'm saying, the idea, I think people hear the word I know people hear the word reparations and they're like, we're just going to write a check. No, there are other ways. I mean, is there a system in place to educate artists, just artists, period, to understand their contracts? Is there a system in place to help artists understand the royalty systems, how to collect, how to develop further, how to invest? What resources are there to give artists a lot more power in the business that they're in? That can be a big part of the picture. Right. Doesn't just have to be retroactively, writing a check to people, though. I think to Khalees's point, if there are families of artists whose catalogs are entirely owned by labels and they can't get a cent of it, that's a major problem.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a lot of problems. And hopefully, there's people that made a lot of positive statements. I just hope it rolls up to the big. I think the better statements came from the smaller entities. I don't know, BeatStars is not small, but relative to, in Atlanta,
Universal Music.
Yeah. So yeah, but I feel encouraged. It's been a heavy week. I feel encouraged by a lot of people's actions and statements. For the most part. So yeah, tough, heavy week. But I see a lot of change, or just a lot of conversations happening that weren't happening before. So I know that a lot of people are looking for these big changes, these big organizational, these big law changes, things like that. And I hopefully that comes. But I think the conversations that we're having that we've never had before is kind of where a lot of that energy starts. And I just hopefully we can get organized and start making some changes within the music industry and outside of it, as a larger community as well.
Cool. On that note, episode 50, maybe we'll call the next episode 50 and a half. Appreciate all of you tuning in. MusicEntrepreneurClub.com. Follow us on Instagram, same name, at Music Entrepreneur Club. Once again, I'm DJ Payne 1. He's Dame Ritter. Appreciate you tuning in. Peace.
Peace.